Thank you, Rudi and Heinz and Thomas. And then I will ask you to maybe join me here and grab a microphone. We have 20 minutes before we have lunch, which is nice. And before I start with my question, I have maybe, as the time is short, maybe you at the audience already, somebody want to address some questions. Yes, there are.
Thank you. Thank you for nice presentations. Especially like the part about it being not so complicated in order for it to success. So I'm a representative for a haulers association in Denmark. And I think in order for this to become a success with the FT, is that it's something that makes it easier for the companies and not another administrative burden. What we see today, for instance, we already have the IMI certificate, which is an electronic document in order to prove posting. We had some of the latest cases. A driver stopped in Sweden, and he was supposed to present this document. He used an app solution, digital solution, but had problems with this. And for this, he was fined 5,000 euros. And this is one of the things that makes it complicated for the company. So I think it's very important for us to take it into consideration. This has to be something that makes it easier for the companies, especially also because we have a lot of the companies, it's small companies, and many of the drivers are not that young. So, yeah, keeping it as simple as possible is very important for us.
Thank you. Anybody wants to comment it?
I think it's when you understand how to use it, then it's easier, and it would not be a burden for the company, because I think you have pre-selected data when you do the same operations all the time, and you maybe just do 2 clicks and you have all the documents needed for that.
Thank you. More question?
Hi, Jacob Voorspui. Well, I spoke before, so I won't introduce myself again. I'm just also a little bit critical about just keeping it simple. We also need to keep it affordable, because your skippers, they don't have money to burn. So getting started is one of the key issues that I think Ulrika also mentioned before the break, is one of the key things that's going to be able to make or break whether or not the economic operator is willing to join. And if we make it mandatory, we may well be excluding a large proportion of the SMEs from participating and basically breaking their businesses. So I would like us very much to consider about the SMEs and to what extent they can or should be able to join into this.
Thank you, Jaco, for that comment. I think that I can only agree, and that's one of the reasons why the communication in the next coming 2-3 years is going to be tremendously important. Because if we look at, and some will probably share that this afternoon, if we look at the early implementations of, for instance, ECMR environments, or also in inland navigations, electronic reportings, then once you have simple to use applications which are often presented in a cloud environment, this afternoon I hope that Barry will explain a little bit more on that. In reality, there is a low entry cost for an economic operator to join this cloud platform and to use it in a day-to-day operation. So to make him jumping from paper to a digital format, our message must be simple. I think we have to explain, we have to put together use cases, we need to show that it already can be done. Because it's not like that we start from zero. We have many platforms already today that prove that you can use digital waybills to simplify the relationships between doing business between your company and your customers, consignors and consignees. But I fully agree, cost is a point, because logistics companies, we know that if business is going well, they have no time. And if business is going not well, they have no money. So we have to make sure that at the right moment, we have the right message, I think.
Yes, probably. Is this working? Yeah, probably from the view from inspectorates and for inspections. Following the logic of my presentation, if there is something new digitalized in traffic and road traffic, this is what I'm focusing on. The inspectorates must be prepared for this. So if there are new regulations, this costs personal training, as you said in your presentation, and money, as who was it? This. So I know this from my German police career that Germany is a federal state and police matters are federal matters, and there are some federal states who say, no, I do not have the money, I do not want to spend the money, and I ask myself, are we the competent authorities? Because we have a federal authority, which is Bundesamt, which is as well a partner in this FT program project. So they deny, they do not have this equipment. And this car I showed you in my presentation, the price has 6 digits. So it's more than 200,000 euros, such a car. And yes, the ministries not always are able, probably, but willing. This is the fact. The willingness is not that spread and that common to invest for such inspections. So it's not only a question for the drivers or for the vessel or for the organizations, but as well from the perspective of the inspectorates.
Maybe I can add from the governmental perspective that we have noticed it in Estonia also, that companies, before they don't see the benefits of digitalizations, they don't make these investments. And we have now 6 FT platforms already. It's not, of course, certified yet, but it's compliant of the rules that we are existing now for FT. We have 6 FT platforms in Estonia, and now we gave also European funds for developing them. And now we have a second round of call. We allocated 5 million euros for SMEs and companies to go digital, and the rate for the aid is also 80% or something. But even with that, the interest is not very high. So there needs to be a lot of communication, explanation before we can push them. And I think that in first hand, probably the companies who are more advanced and maybe adventurers even will go, and then the later stages others will follow. But yes, it is very well put, and it's a problem. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Marc Billet, International Road Transport Union. Now, we know road transport enforcement is a very complex thing, okay? And we know that there are already today integrated enforcement exercises whereby there is close cooperation between authorities from different countries. And when we see those integrated enforcement exercises, we see the differences in equipment, in hardware and in software. And we see that some of the software can do more than other software. So how can we get some guarantees that in fact all the equipment will be able to read everything and will indeed avoid potential need for large packs of paper backups because the equipment cannot read the actual data being provided by the eFTI platforms?
I'm going to answer from the perspective of eFTI4EU and steal some of the comments of Timo. Within eFTI4EU, we think that the interfaces and the data model governing how data is shared between one member state and the other member state, we need to make sure that we carve that in stone in such a way that we have an European-wide implementation of eFTI, that when a German control authority is inspecting a Spanish truck, or when a German inland navigation authority is inspecting a Belgian vessel, that information is harmonized and that the interfaces are harmonized. Everyone will continue to have his national system, but harmonization of the interfaces and the data model in a very simple way, I'm going to add that also, in a very simple way, is a key success factor that we should try to follow, because we should not aim in 1, 2, 3 that every country will have the same system. But on the other hand, we should focus on, as much as possible, having one European eFTI environment and not 27 member states eFTI environment, which are interconnected between each other. From a perspective there on this, the other side, specific for inland navigation, we do already have an European platform for traffic management, for safety. Also there, we want to make sure that what we already have, that it can be integrated with the national platforms and with other modes of transport, sometimes indirectly through port community systems to port systems. So harmonization is a key word. I also remember that when we started eFTI, there were 2 big priorities, because the company said, and also the authorities said, we are only going to start if we have a European-wide regulation, this is eFTI, and if we have an European-wide data sharing environment. This is what we also need to develop in the next coming months. But maybe from a road perspective, you can certainly add maybe a point.
No, not new items. I emphasize harmonization is key on this, and it's not only the European regulations, like all the regulations under Mobility Package 1. You are surely aware of this, but the problem is that all these regulations sometimes they have some space for, let's say, interpretation. And this makes it quite different to do it the same, to roll out all these regulations in let's say in Spain, as you mentioned, the same way like in Finland. And this is this is quite challenging, to have this harmonization, that we have the same level of inspections on the road in the south of Spain and in the north of Finland. So. And this is, I think, a sustainable challenge.
I agree that the harmonization needs to be done, but on the other hand, if you don't have an equipment, you don't have the knowledge, you won't check this, and the company wins from that. So.
Yes, I wanted to ask, Thomas, you have quite an experience of authorities' access points. You're using it every day at your work. What kind of data are you gathering there or inspecting on your daily life in your authority access point? And has there been any problems using this?
You think the usual check,
yes.
What data I can get? Yeah. I can get the data from the taxing of the vehicle, driving license, registration, permits, company licenses, a lot of stuff. Because In Estonia, we call it X-Road, and so every database we need, it could be put in our database. So through this X-Road, and
so you gather information from the registries then.
It gathers through the registries to the national registries, but not all of them are national registries. Some of them, like I can access, I think they all are national, from different authorities just.
Okay, but you're not scanning anything, you go from your tablet, so to say, and put the...
Yeah, it's through the tablet, but it is possible to scan the registration plate number also and to get the same information.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Yes, one more.
Thank you. Anton de Smet, independent consultant, but before I was retired, I was working for Knauf Building Constructions. So what I have seen in the presentation of Rudy is a little bit about multimodal transport. So my question is, we as Knauf, we are producing in Belgium palletized goods, which are then loaded on a truck, 50 trucks. We let them go up 5 kilometers further on onto the quay to be loaded into a barge. They go further on the barge. They arrive in Holland. They go back on a truck, and then they are delivered to a customer. How do you go then? How do you proceed with the documents at that moment? CMR is leaving, CMR is arriving, but in between you still have this barge. Is there one single document that will be possible for the barge eventually, or how are you dealing with that in FT?
I love this question.
Thank you.
This is a very essential question. Thanks for asking, because all modes of transport are asking that question. How are we going to deal with multimodal transports, which are using different modes, one behind the other, and whereby typically on a barge you can have 20 or 40 containers or whatever, and then 20 or 40 deliverables of these containers to the final destination. We will see, first of all, is that the eFTI regulation, this is my view on this, or everything is still being discussed. We also have to be careful on that. The eFTI is about digital waybills. And if you look at digital waybills, if we have 20 trucks and one barge operator, in most of the cases, we have 22 waybills. Oh, Rudy, what are you saying? We have for each truck operation a CMR for a delivery node. We have for the barge operation a waybill for the barge operation with the 20 containers from port A to port B. And in most of the cases, we have a shipment or we have a forwarder document going from A to B to C for the 20 containers. So 20 plus 1 is 22. We expect that this is going to happen, that we are going, it will take some time, but in air cargo it is already like that for a long time. We expect that this is going to happen, that the information exchange between the waybills, between the different eFTI platforms, between the eFTI datasets is going to be harmonized, standardized, and then implemented in practice, especially for those who are going to be in combined transport or in dangerous goods transport, because there we always use the same information. So my answer is 22. Yeah.
For the moment. Just because I have one little bit around. Because I'm talking about palletized goods. So you have on your truck, you have 33 pallets that are going in the ship. So that's not one truck that's going or one container that's going, it's 33 pallets. 50 times 33 pallets. And what is one of my biggest problems out in is then the risks. Risk of damage, risk of loss. How can you prove that at what point there was a damage, there was a loss? Who will be responsible for that? And that always goes together with the documents.
Many thanks for this other favorite question. A waybill, the way I see it, attention, sometimes I'm biased by some sectors, yeah, but the waybill and also how it is implemented by ECMR providers, in essence, is registering two events. A waybill is used between the consignor and the carrier to trace the goods and the documents which are handed over from one party to the other party. And the same waybill is used at the end of the voyage to trace the handover again from the carrier to the consignee. This is the essence of a waybill at this moment, whether it is a forwarder or ECMR or an airway bill or so. eFTI is standardizing that, how to share information with authorities. We expect that the eFTI platforms are going to standardize how to share information between the parties. I think this is probably the outcome from there. But the waybill itself, by design, by also protocol, is tracing the handover of the goods from one party to the other party, with the big advantage and also must have that you can use that trace in case of litigations. I think that Mark will help me on this answer.
We had, okay. Just last question because we ran out of time. Okay.
Well, it's not a question. I think I need to put in another perspective on the matter. When you look at something like CMR, and I'm very careful because CMR is only a consignment note. Okay. Now, when a carrier accepts goods from a consignor, the carrier becomes responsible for those goods. Okay. And then there is a data set or a piece of paper that accompanies. But behind that data set or that piece of paper is also a liability system and insurers making sure that there is coverage. So when something goes wrong with the goods during the carriage, that damage or loss can be covered. So in fact, when the haulier hands over to the barge operator becomes responsible for the goods. Then when the barge operator on the other side hands over to the other haulier, the haulier regains responsibility for the goods. It is always very important to look at the status of the goods, because if there is damage, then there's going to be serious discussions between the different parties on who's responsible. And then, of course, the different liability regimes which gather behind those documents become very important.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that there are more questions, but maybe you can ask those in the lunch. And please applause to our panelists. Thank you. And before we go to lunch, we have a favor for you, everybody, to go outside. We will make a group photo. And then we will have a lunch which is served there. And we will be back in about an hour, a little bit less than an hour, 15 minutes before 3. Thank you.